Hey, this is Jamie with Stillmeyer Games, and today I'm going to talk about my top 10 favorite comfort games. This is a term for a game that I don't think I'd heard until recently, but someone asked me about my favorite comfort game, and I didn't have an immediate answer, so I've been thinking about it a lot. And also, I went to a game day, one of my first fully vaccinated game days, where everyone there, including myself, was fully vaccinated in a long time. And I found that my endurance for playing a lot of games back to back has worn down a bit, and that I fell back on some games that I have to call comfort games. They were games that were easy to like intuitive to remember how to play them. They were easy to set up. They were easy to teach. I am very familiar with these games, so this is highly subjective. I'm very familiar with these games. They may not be comfort games to someone who hasn't played them, and yet, despite the ease of the setup and remembering the rules, they are still interesting. They still involve interesting decisions, and they seem to offer a positive experience for the entire table. So they're. It's hard, I think, for a player to have a really negative experience, which I don't really want from a comfort game. I want everyone to have a good time, even in a competitive setting. And so yeah, let me jump into a few kind of honorable mention lists. One sub list that I want to put here is digital games and digital versions of games. There are a few games that came to mind that are somewhat mindless games that I enjoy falling into if I just need kind of a 5 minute break from work or something like that. One is Shards of Infinity Digital. I really, really love the Shards of Infinity Digital implementation, and it's so easy just to load up and start playing. I think a lot of people might put Star Realms in that category. Star Realms is also really good, but I just happen to prefer Shards of Infinity. Seven Wonders on Board Game Arena, I think, is one of those games where if someone brings it up at the end of at the beginning or the end of a game night that we're playing virtually, it's so easy to fall into and play interesting decisions, but don't have to think a lot about it. And it just plays so quickly on Board Game Arena compared to real life. And also Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire is maybe a little bit of a stretch for this list, but it does feel a lot of fun to fall into a game of Slay the Spire and play it for a little bit. It can stretch out a little bit longer than I'd want to just take like a short digital game break, but I do really enjoy it. Some honorable mentions. These are really hard games to cut because I have a number of comfort games. I think I like playing comfort games. And so these games really could have made the list. They are two of them are from Stonemaier Games. I would say Red Rising and Wingspan are the two games from Stonemaier Games that I would most consider comfort games for me personally. And then from other publishers, I have Parks, Stone Age, Just One, Dune Imperium, Isle of Skye, Clank, Scotland Yard, Mysterium Park, The Mind, Patchwork, Ra, Isle of Cats, Glen More 2, and Draftosaurus. So those are my honorable mentions. So jumping into the list, and really this list was incredibly difficult to rank because I enjoyed all of these games for different reasons. I really tried to focus on the comfort aspect of it, but it was more of like, why shouldn't I put this game higher on this list? I had to think of it that way almost. And so number 10, I have Downforce. Downforce is a racing game where I typically play this with 6 players. You have one car that's assigned to you or that you choose during a little mini draft at the beginning of the game. And then over the course of the game, all you do on your turn is play a single card, and that card indicates how far each car with that color will move, if possible. And you have to follow the order on the card. So if it says like 5 red, 3 green, 1 blue, you have to move the red car forward 5 spaces, if possible, and then the green car 3, then the blue car 1 space. And so I love that most players are involved in any turn. You're engaged in kind of watching what a player will do on every turn because it will potentially impact your car. And if not move your car, it might impact your car's position or how they can move forward or not move forward. And I also really like that there are reasons in this game to help other players. There are also reasons to kind of screw over other players and get them log jammed and let them not benefit from these cards you're playing. That's a big part of the game. But also there's certain times where you just need to move that green car out of the way. And so you have to play a card that moves the green car first and farther than your own car, just so you can get your car out of a stopgap area on the course. I also love the variety of tracks in Downforce. Why is it a comfort game, I guess, for me, is really the real question, is that it fits all these conditions. It's very intuitive to teach and play. What you're doing on your turn is so simple. It doesn't take a lot of brain power, but I'm still engaged with the decisions throughout the game. I just have fun with Downforce whenever I play. So Downforce is my number 10 game for this list. Oh man, I did pull it off my shelf. I have Sagrada over there. I totally forgot to pull it off the shelf. Sagrada is my number nine. Sagrada, I think a few of these games, I think the theme plays a big part of it, even though not necessarily. But Sagrada, the theme of making a stained glass window with simple dice drafting, and the puzzle of deciding where you want to put dice inside your glass, your stained glass, just feels good. Feels good. It's pleasant. It's welcoming. And yeah, I enjoy Sagrada every time I play. If I could highlight a few things about it that are somewhat related to being comfort, I love the component of the thick, big stained glass window. I really should have pulled it off my shelf. This thick stained glass window where you slide a card into it. They could have done that component in a variety of ways, but I like that they slide it in and that the inner compartment holds the dice in there, kind of like a dual layered player mat. Really like that. And the dice drafting is really nice, but I really like the spatial puzzle of the game. The spatial puzzle is very, very satisfying to me. So that is Sagrada at number 9. At number 8 is Tokaido. I don't own Tokaido. I have played it on Board Game Arena a number of times and in life a number of times. And I'm getting the sequel called Namiji, so perhaps Namiji will take its spot on this list in the future. But it's this one-way action selection time track that you move forward as far as you want up until a certain point and gain the benefit that you really want on this track. And so there's this, the art is beautiful, the theme is very pleasant. It's this Japanese, this walk along a Japanese path. And I love how simple the decisions are. Basically, how far forward do I want to go on this path? But in doing so, you're giving up all these other points of interest that you could be stopping at. It's a very pleasant stroll through the Japanese countryside. And yeah, it feels, it's hard for me to entirely describe why all these games go on this list, but Tokaido is just so comforting. It's like a warm blanket of a game. And that's why it's my number 8 on this list. Space Base is one that I would say maybe wouldn't have been on this list a few years ago, but I've really, really found a lot of enjoyment for Space Base, even given that I almost never win it. I think I may have never won Space Base. Space Base is one of these games, maybe kind of originated with Catan, where one player rolls their dice on their turn, and all players can benefit potentially from those dice. So if they roll a 2 and a 3, I can, if I have cards set up in the right way on my mat, I can gain the benefits of a 2 or a 3, or I can add the numbers together and gain the benefits from a 5. There are so many great decision points you can make over the course of the game, mostly involving which cards do you add to your tableau. And the decision point you have to make every turn of, do I choose the 2 and the 3, or do I choose the sum of the numbers, the 5, and activate that instead? And on your turn, when you're the one actually rolling the dice, you are gaining kind of the best benefits from the cards on your mat. It fits all these requirements. I would say the only one that's a little bit of a stretch is that the setup does take a little while because you're putting out a lot of cards on the table. But if you have more than one person helping out, it really doesn't take that long to set up Space Base. And it's just a joy to play. It feels good to play. It feels rewarding. In fact, I had to look at my list of rewarding games because I think a lot of these comfort games are very rewarding. They're not very punishing. And Space Base is definitely a very rewarding game. That's why it's at number 7 on this list. At number 6, kind of related to the previous two, or related to Space Base and to Sagrada, is Role Player. Role Player is one that I only recently acquired, even though it's been a comfort game for me for a long time. If someone brings Role Player to game night, I am excited to play because it's so easy to get to the table and so easy to have a satisfying experience from playing the game. This was actually the game that made me think about this list because at the game night that I mentioned at the beginning of this recording, Role Player was the game that I brought to the table because I was like, I'm happy to teach a game, but I don't want it to be difficult to teach, and I want to be able to pay attention to my own thing while other players are still learning the game. And because it's so easy to learn and pick up, I didn't have to constantly monitor the other players. I could just kind of relax and focus on my own dice placement in Role Player. And that was the experience that I had. It was exactly up the alley of what I was looking for, and I love this game. The theme of the game is that you are building a character, kind of a D&D style character, but in a very abstract way. You're using dice on your mat to fill in all these various characteristics and meet these goals of like where certain colors of dice are placed or the total value of different dice in a row. And you have this alignment chart that you're moving around. I love how the theme is mixed with mechanisms that are otherwise very abstract. And it just feels so satisfying to build this character. In fact, that might be another common theme with these games. It's satisfying to end up building something in these games, to look back with a sense of accomplishment at the end of the game. There's a level of comfort to that as well. And that definitely happens for me in Role Player. That's why it's number 6 on my list. So we are at the top 5 now. Here, number 5, Azul Summer Pavilion. Definitely my favorite Azul, and just a really, really nice, rewarding, pleasant game to play. So the theme is pleasant. The rules are very easy to remember. Setup hardly takes any time at all. And it is the most rewarding of the Azuls, in my opinion, because over the course of the game, not only are you scoring points for the end of the game, but over the course of the game as well, you are finishing certain sections on your map. You can, maybe if you zoom in, you can kind of see it here. You're finishing certain sections of your player map, and when you do, you gain a bonus tile, or even up to 3 bonus tiles that you immediately get to place. So there's this sense of progress, and even a little bit of sense of engine building and completion over the course of the game that actually means something more than points. And that's why I really, really love Azul Summer Pavilion, and why it is definitely a comfort game for me at number 5 on my list. And number 4 is Lords of Waterdeep, and this is kind of a dual award because this definitely could have fit into my digital game category. For a long time, I had it on my iPad. My iPad's too old to use at this point, but for a long time I would just take a break and play 10 minutes of Lords of Waterdeep on my iPad. Now I have it on Steam on the PC. I guess I could still do it there. But I love getting Lords of Waterdeep to the table as well. It is just this warm comfort of a worker placement game because it's so easy to get into and play. Everything about it is streamlined and intuitive. And I love the sense of progression over the course of the game as players kind of work together to add new action spaces via the buildings of the board. And yeah, it's just a pleasant, warm game to me, and especially in the worker placement genre. That's Lords of Waterdeep at number 4. And actually, I probably should mention one favorite mechanism thing since these videos are for designers. But Lords of Waterdeep, I think, has one of the best mission systems in any game. I really love the mission system in games because not only are you often getting points from the missions you complete, or I think they're quests that you're completing, but you're also gaining resources that you can use then for the next mission, or you gain a permanent bonus, an ongoing bonus, or there are various things that you're gaining. So every mission you complete has something that leads into the next step of the game. So you're saying, okay, there's almost an order of the mission. You're saying, okay, I'm going to complete this mission so I can gain this benefit and then do this thing next. And that feels really, really good in Lords of Waterdeep. That's number 4 on my list. And number 3 is Castles of Mad King Ludwig. I love this game. Again, it's a very rewarding game because as you are placing tiles in your zany, crazy castle in this game, you are often gaining 2 benefits. You're gaining a benefit for placing the tile, usually points, and then you're gaining, if you complete if you complete a tile, complete a room in your castle, that means you close off all the entrances. You gain an additional bonus based on the tile type for that room itself. And that feels really good too. So often in turn, you're getting these 2 rewards. That feels really good. Also, there's the sense of completion. You're building something over the course of the game. There is the simplicity to learn the game, to play the game. The rules are very intuitive. And so really the only thing I ever have to look up in this game is how many cards do we put in the deck. And I believe it's 11 per player. So if I had that right, I don't ever need to look at the rulebook for this game. The rules are so streamlined and intuitive. The only thing I think holding it back from being a little bit higher is that the setup is a little arduous. You have to put out the tiles in certain places. You have to shuffle certain tiles. You have to shuffle the cards. It's really not that big of a deal. Also, I love the I price you choose mechanism. This game has so many favorite mechanisms that I love, and it's just it's a wonderful game. I can't wait. I don't own it. I'm getting the special deluxe edition from Kickstarter, and that might actually solve the setup issue is a harsh term to use for this. The setup is really not bad in this game, but compared to some of these other comfort games, it does take a little bit longer. Number 3 on my list, Castles of Mad King Ludwig. At number 2, Quacks of Quedlinburg. This is another one that if a friend brings up, hey, do you want to play Quacks? And I'm not in the mood to learn something new or teach something, I just fall into Quacks. Again, it's this warm blanket of a game. Quacks is a bag building game where you're pulling tiles from a bag and hoping that you don't push your luck. So it has push your luck, it has bag building. I love that. There's engine building within bag building, of course. And there's also this variable setup in the game. So every game, the meaning of the different tokens in the game changes based on a random setup choice that you make. and it's just very pleasant. I think in the past I would have put this game a little bit lower on the list because I thought the setup took a long time. But then I learned that there's a clever setup hack where instead of separating all the token types by type, separate them by number. And so that means that you don't have to set up, I believe, like instead of having 6 or 7 different pools of tiles that you have to sort through, it's just 3 because there are only 3 different numbers on the different tokens in the game. And that one thing makes setup so much easier because it's just super easy to set up that way. So with that one little hack, setup is so much faster. And Quacks, not hacks, Quacks is up at number 2 on my comfort games list. And number 1 is a little game, probably the shortest game on this list, and that is Fantasy Realms. I love Fantasy Realms. This is one that fits so many things on this list. It's super easy to set up. It's so easy to teach and get to the table. You get to build such a satisfying combo of hands. There are interesting decisions throughout the game. The game doesn't overstay its welcome, but you can still play back-to-back games if you really want to. I've done that many times. I have the expansion now, and I really enjoy the expansion. And actually, even the expansion is comforting because the expansion is not hard to teach at all. It's easy to seamlessly always leave in the game. And if you don't want the rules overhead of teaching how the what are they called, the cursed items, how those items work, then you just don't play with them. It's not a problem just to not play with them. But Fantasy Realms, yeah, this was the inspiration for Red Rising, a game that I put in my honorable mentions. But Fantasy Realms, it's just such a comforting, warm game to get to the table. It's so easy to get to the table. It just, yeah, it feels good to actually, one of the nice things about Fantasy Realms is that you start out with a random hand of cards that already feels good. So right away from the beginning of the game, you feel like you have done something, even though you've done nothing. The sense of endowed progress. And then over the course of the game, you hone that hand, you make it better and better over the course of the game. Maybe you take some chances, you go after a certain combination of cards that may or may not work out. So there's a little bit of tension there too. But then it's over in 15, 20 minutes. And so, yeah, it's just, it's a wonderful game. I love Fantasy Realms. And that's why it is my number 1 comfort game. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Maybe there's some stipulations about comfort games that I haven't thought of. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And if you have, I don't know, a top 3 games that you just fall into, that they're warm blanket games where you just feel wrapped and comforted and happy when these games get to the table, let me know what your top 3 comfort games are in the comments below. Thanks.